You know, the human race has always had a kind of a sixth sense that death is not the end. That we're going to spend way more time in the next life than we do in this one. And that's why some of the most amazing constructions in the world were actually built to usher powerful, wealthy people into the next life. This is the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's over 480 feet tall. It's more than a half a mile in circumference. It required a labor force of something like 20,000 men working for 20 years. It's the only one of the seven wonders of the ancient world remaining. And for 3,800 years, it was the tallest man-made structure in the world, guarded by the Sphinx. You can tell it was a government project because they forgot to add on the nose. It was built to hold the mummified remains of a pharaoh named Khufu. It's been a testimony for centuries to his power and his wealth. Now, this is the site of the terracotta warriors in China. It was actually discovered by a couple of farmers in the 1970s, and it has astounded the world. The first vault is bigger than a football field. There are 8,000 life-size, very lifelike terracotta warriors, and they were created to serve as kind of an army for the emperor in the next life. 3 vaults have been excavated. Altogether, there are like 300 vaults. The tomb of the emperor was said to be covered with pearls to recreate the heavens, and they filled the little cracks with rivers of mercury. It was filled with every kind of food for the next life, all of which is decayed except for 1 pack of Twinkies. It took 700,000 workers to create this. When Nancy and I were there recently, our guide told us that when the emperor died, to keep the location a secret, all the remaining workers were simply covered with dirt and buried in the tomb. It's amazing how we treat death. The most magnificent building in India is the Taj Mahal, that was built as a tomb by an emperor for his wife when she died giving birth to their 14th child. But the most important tomb in human history that was ever constructed is none of these. There is one tomb that stands alone, that dwarfs every other grave, every other burial place, no matter what you think about God or any particular person. One tomb. And it's not famous for what's in it. It's famous for what was not in it. Nobody knows for sure where the tomb that Jesus was laid in was located. Might have been right here. This is called the Garden of the Resurrection, and it's a place traditionally associated with the burial of Jesus, where people have come for a long time to reflect about him. For sure, it was not far from here. The existence of the church and the hope of the world rides on what happened in this tomb. When Jesus died, nobody was working on a pyramid. Nobody was working on a Taj Mahal. In fact, he was so poor that there was not even enough money for a burial place for him. And a man named Joseph from Arimathea put Jesus' body in a tomb that he owned. Maybe this one. And he rolled a stone in front of it to make sure that no animals would be able to get at the body. The Romans, the government, posted guards in front of the tomb just to make sure that some of Jesus' followers didn't steal the body and claim he was still alive and start trouble. And then it happened like this. Now, when the Saturday Sabbath was over, and the first day of the week was just starting to dawn, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to see the grave. At this moment, it's over. Nobody is left except just these 2 women. Not the crowds that cheered him a week ago, not all those people that he healed, not his disciples. Everybody's crushed. There's an old saying from a theologian named Yogi Berra, who also died this last year. It's never over till it's over. Jesus is dead. Jesus is crucified. It's over. Why do they come, these 2 women? I think it's just love. I think love dies even harder than hope. And they just sit there grieving. And look, a huge earthquake hit. For an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, went up to the stone, and rolled it away, and sat down on top of it. His face was like lightning, and his clothes as white as snow. And in terror at the sight of him, The guards quaked and became like dead men. But the angel spoke up and said to the women, "Don't you be afraid. I know you are looking for Jesus, the crucified man. Well, he is not here. He has been raised, you see, just as he said he would be. Come and take a look at the place where they put him. Now, go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead. He is going on ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. Look, I've told you." And they left the grave quickly with fear and great joy, running to tell his disciples. There is in this place at this moment an encounter with a power and a presence that is just beyond the human capacity to put into words. You know, everybody in California is waiting for the earthquake, what we all call the big one, but here's where it's hit. And the guards outside the tomb, who are supposed to be alive, are like dead guys, we're told. But the body in the tomb, who's supposed to be a dead guy, is an alive guy. The angel says to the women, "Don't you be afraid." Like a little fear wouldn't hurt the guards. But for the women, he says, "Don't you be afraid. You're looking for Jesus." And then he invites them into the tomb. And here's the message. Here's the central line of the New Testament. Here's the most important sentence ever uttered. They go in and they're trembling and they're afraid and they're confused and they're discouraged, and then they hear it. He is not here. He is not here. Death couldn't hold him. The grave couldn't stop him. Hell could not defeat him. So whatever you face, however big your problems look to you, wherever you're coming from, this is the sentence that changed the world. And it was spoken on a day just like this day 2,000 years ago, and it changed everything. He is not here. He is risen. He is alive. He is coming back. He is not here. Everything else in the world is just the same as it was yesterday. Caesar is still on the throne in Rome. Pilate is still washing his hands of the whole deal. The disciples are still hiding. The crowds are still disbelieving. The soldiers are still mocking just this one thing. He is not here. The angel doesn't say he'll live on in our hearts, or he'll be present in our memories, or we'll try to keep his spirit alive, or we'll keep spreading his message. Oh no, oh no. This is a tomb. This is the place of death and despair and disillusionment and discouragement and defeat and hopelessness and failure and heartbreak and grief. I know, but it's all okay for one reason. He is not here. Everything's the same except for that one thing, but that one thing changes everything else. So don't you be afraid. Of what? Of anything. Soldiers, angels, Rome, graves, death, corpses, getting in trouble, money problems, health problems, bad jobs, no jobs, bad dates, no dates, bad hair, no hair, doesn't matter. He is not here. And that means you can't stay here either. Now go quickly and tell his disciples, Jesus is risen. Now here's what's amazing part of what this means. Nobody else in the world knows. That means for a little while, for these several hours, these two women, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, are the church. They're it. Eventually, the church will be billions of people, and there'll be denominations and cathedrals and television ministries and church ministries, but right now it's just them. So they have a mission. So they have a message. He has been raised. The angel says in the original language, it's just one single word. Come and take a look. Come and see. Now, I never thought about this before, but the text says that the angel rolled the stone away. However, the resurrection had already happened. We know from reading through the New Testament that the resurrected Jesus had a body that could walk through stuff. He walks through locked doors later on to get to his disciples when they're in a room with the doors locked for fear. In other words, the stone wasn't rolled away to let Jesus out. It was rolled away to let them in. The angel did not say, "Take my word for it, just trust me." See, this is a kind of invitation, not just to them, but to everybody. Look around, think it through, use your mind, study the evidence, see for yourself. This really happened. And then the angel doesn't say, "Stay and enjoy." He says, "Go and tell." He says, "You have a job to do." And it is so like God to do this. In the ancient world where they lived, women were not allowed even to be witnesses in a court. One of the reasons why the resurrection story just could not have been a made-up story is that in a made-up version, they never would have had women as the key witnesses. See, when the church got started, it's all girls, no boys yet at all. And the women are told to leave there and go to Galilee where they'll see Jesus. And they go. In fact, they run. Now, here's the thing. When you're over here, you realize this. Galilee is 100 miles from Jerusalem, where we are right now. That's going to be one long run. And they're filled with fear and great joy. And people wonder, are those incompatible emotions? Anybody here ever get married? Anybody here ever have a child? They don't know what it all means yet. The Romans and the officials still want to stamp out the Jesus movement. If they say that they're still going, their lives are at risk, but he is not here. And then this often happens when we just obey God. Jesus shows up by surprise. And look, Jesus met them saying, "Hi." And they came up to him, grabbed his feet, and worshiped him. Doesn't Jesus seem a little understated here? Like all he's got to say after a resurrection is hi? It's kind of like he expected this. It's kind of like he wasn't surprised by this at all. But if you want to see him, you'll have to go where he wants you to go. You'll have to do what he wants you to do. You'll have to say what he wants you to say. This is so cool. And then Jesus says to them, "Don't be afraid. Go tell my brothers to come to me in Galilee, and they will see me there." And there's a beautiful detail here. Jesus is talking about his disciples, and then his great crisis in the crucifixion. One of them betrayed him. One of them, Peter, denied him, and all of them deserted him. He doesn't call them disciples now. He calls them brothers. He had never called them brothers before. This is the first time he does it now. So imagine when Mary Magdalene and the other Mary tell the guys, they can't believe it. But when they hear about this, they wonder, how mad is Jesus at me? After what he went through and I deserted him, he'd probably never want to see me again. And the women say to him, "He's not mad. He called you his brothers." And the disciples believe. And the church goes co-ed, and it's still going. And now it's you and me in this one message. And for you, everything is just the same as it was when you walked in. Your boss is still cranky. Your spouse is still imperfect or non-existent. The money you want in your bank account is still not there. The empty chair at your table is still not filled. The runaway child still hasn't come home. The dream still hasn't come true. Just one thing. He is not here. And he is not mad. And he wants you to have forgiveness through his bloodstained cross. And he wants you to have hope through his empty tomb. And here's the deal. Because he left there, he can come here. He can come into the hearts of people. And there's this amazing truth, which is so simple that a child can get it, but so profound that nobody can fully understand it, that Jesus now is able to be present in our heart. Friends of ours were telling us about their daughter, and they were trying to explain You know, Jesus can be with you all the time. He can be right there in your life. And her response was, I know Jesus lives in my heart because when I put my hand on it, I can feel him walking around in there. And it's just true. This is the indwelling power of Jesus. Because he wouldn't stay where he was, he can come be with you where you are. Not just that, though. Because he wouldn't stay where he was, you can't stay where you are. You have a new hope for tomorrow. You have a new job for today. You have a new mission. You get to join now with Mary and the other Mary and the disciples and billions of people all over the place. You get to join the community of the resurrection. In fact, unbelievable as it sounds, we're told that the power that raised Jesus from the dead will be at work inside you to make you a new person. You get to bring hope to the hopeless. You get to extend love to people that nobody is paying attention to. You get to serve the forgotten. You get to give out of a generous heart. You get to declare to the whole world that he is not there. He is here.